2019 kicks off with a winter wallop. A snowstorm in February shuts down roads and schools, cancels flights, and leaves roads a mess.
I seen cars spinning out. I seen cars flipping over onto the side.
It's declared the snowiest February on record, with a whopping 68 centimeters at the Victoria Airport.
My boy.
Also in February, hundreds of demonstrators gather outside the Duncan Courthouse for the Teddy the Dog trial, one of the most horrific animal abuse cases the SPCA says it's ever seen. Melissa Tushley and Anderson Joe end up pleading guilty and receive a lifetime ban on owning animals. A measles outbreak early in the year prompts a push for vaccinations. What started in Washington State and Vancouver arrives on Vancouver Island with several confirmed cases.
The levels of immunization in British Columbia are not sufficient.
It prompts the BC government to start a review of school records to ensure students are immunized.
Get a good shot of him.
He's big and he's beloved. And in March, the family of the man who created Howard, the world's tallest gnome, announces he will have to move from his Nanoose Bay perch. After dozens of offers, Saanich's Gailey Farms is chosen as the gentle giant's new home. After a major makeover, he's waving to crowds by fall. On April 16th, the trial for Andrew Barry begins in Vancouver. It lasts 6 months, and the jury finds Barry guilty of the second-degree murder of his daughters Chloe and Aubrey on Christmas Day 2017. Barry is sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 22 years, but immediately files an appeal. In early May, firefighters are called to battle a massive fire at the former Plaza Hotel in downtown Victoria. The historic building is destroyed and the fire is declared suspicious. The building's caretaker, Mike Dreger, is missing, and police appeal for help in finding him. It's a big year in politics. In May, Green Party candidate Paul Manley pulls off an upset in the Nanaimo Ladysmith by-election. And in October, when the country goes to the polls, he retains the seat, one of 3 Greens elected in a Liberal minority government.
All right.
In June, the trial begins in Washington State for 56-year-old William Earl Talbot. Investigators used breakthroughs in DNA technology to convict Talbot of the 1987 murders of Vancouver Island couple 18-year-old Tanya Van Cuylenborg and 20-year-old Jay Cook. Talbot receives life in prison with no chance of parole. On July 1st, 3,000 coastal forestry workers walk off the job, demanding fair wages and working conditions. The strike drags on for months, leaving families struggling and crippling the economy. A manhunt is launched after 2 inmates with violent histories escaped from William Head Institution in Mechosin July 7th. 2 days later, an off-duty police officer, walking his Great Dane, spots the pair and they're taken into custody. Just a few days later, police discover 60-year-old Mechosin resident Martin Payne dead in his home. RCMP won't comment on whether Payne's murder is connected to the escaped prisoners. For only the second time in its history, a rabies death is recorded in BC in July. 21-year-old Parksville resident Nick Major is killed after an unusual daytime encounter with a bat on Vancouver Island.
Those 2 boys are still out there. Go find them.
The father of one of 2 missing Port Alberni men makes an appeal for their safe return, but it soon turns out Briar Schmigelski and Cam McLeod are suspects in the murders of 3 people in northern BC. They're tracked to Manitoba, where, after an intensive search, their bodies are found in the dense brush after committing suicide. This summer, the Cowichan River experiences one of the worst droughts on record, putting the town's prime water source in danger. For the first time ever, water is pumped from Cowichan Lake into the river to alleviate the problem. Devastating news for the southern resident orca population in August, as 3 are confirmed dead. It brings the population down to 73 and has scientists wondering if they'll ever recover.
Welcome back!
77-year-old Jen Socrates sails into the record books in September, arriving in Victoria after almost a year at sea and becoming the oldest person to ever sail around the world unassisted. On September 13th, a bus carrying UVic students plunges off a remote road on the way to Bamfield, rolling and killing 2 students. Calls grow to improve safety on the logging road. The largest of several major climate protests draws 20,000 people to the lawn of the legislature this fall, many of them young students demanding political action on climate change. In October, support workers in the Saanich School District walk off the job and are supported by teachers on the picket lines. Hundreds of students are out of the classroom for 3 weeks before a deal is finally reached.
I mean, you don't think that something's going to crash out of the sky and your little island, you know?
On December 10th, tragedy hits Gabriola Island after a small plane crashes, killing all 3 people on board. They're later identified as Vancouver Island residents Alex Balson and Alan and Catherine Boudreau.
Change in any decision-making process.
You can't take a look back at 2019 without mentioning the multiple mishaps at Victoria City Hall. Council finding itself the target of public backlash on multiple occasions, including when they asked the Canadian military to fund Remembrance Day ceremonies.
It was unfortunate, the timing. I won't apologize for standing up for the taxpayer.
The idea is eventually voted down. And to round out the top stories from 2019, the most watched story on CHEKnews.ca this year involved an amateur tow truck driver. Colin Stan is fed up with people parking in front of his Langford home. He takes matters into his own hands, and the whole thing is caught on camera.